Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on how to add audio, images, and more to your VR projects. My name is Nicole. I'm one of the client success specialists here at Yulio, and I'll be hosting today's session. So, our main objective of today's webinar is to go over some of the tools and features within your account that can help you enhance your presentations and unlock the full potential of VR. If you joined me for our Getting Started with Yulio webinar last month, you'll find that this is a nice extension of that webinar. But if you didn't join me for that, don't worry, you'll still be able to follow along without a problem. So if any questions come up as I'm presenting, please feel free to enter them in the question box and I will answer them during the Q&A period at the end of our session. My contact details are also on the screen now, so if you'd like to follow up on today's webinar with any questions or even a complimentary training session on something we covered today or didn't cover today, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer your questions or set up a meeting with you. Finally, if you do have to leave today's session early, I just want to note that I'm recording the full webinar and we'll send that later to all of our registrants. So you'll be able to watch it back and you can share it with your team as well. So here's our agenda for today's session. We'll go over adding enhancement hotspots to your project in the Hotspot Editor. So that will be the bulk of today's webinar. We'll also go into some ways that you can update your project. We'll go over adding scene options, and then we'll wrap up, like I said, with the short Q&A period. So in today's webinar, we'll be working with this project here that was created in CET and rendered with Yulio Jump. If you joined me for the most recent Getting Started with Yulio webinar, you'll recognize this project from that session. So we're continuing to work with this project today because I want to demonstrate how you can improve the project further with our suite of enhancement hotspots and some other updates as well. So I have this project open here now, and right now we're on what we call the project edit page. So you'll see that this project currently only contains the assets that we rendered out of Yulio Jump, as well as one image hotspot that we added to the project manually in that Getting Started with Yulio webinar. So just as a reminder, the assets that we rendered out of Yulio Jump are our 4 scenes here. So that makes up our VR project. We have an AR model that we rendered out of Yulio Jump, as well as our floor plan. And like I said, I did add an image hotspot in that Getting Started with Yulio webinar. I manually uploaded this because I wanted to briefly showcase our hotspot editor and how to add your own hotspots that way. So in addition to those assets that we already have, you'll also notice that we can upload audio and video content here. And we can also add text to our VR projects, but that's actually created in the hotspot editor itself, which I'll show you later on. So unlike in the Getting Started webinar, today I'm going to be taking advantage of all of our enhancement assets so I can show you how you can use each of these to add context to your project and just make the experience more immersive overall for your client or whoever's viewing your VR project. Of course, I do want to remind you that all of these enhancements that you see today are all optional, and you don't have to include all of them in every single VR project that you create. The enhancement assets that you do choose to include in your VR projects is always fully up to you, and they will vary project to project depending on the needs and goals of that specific project. So let's start off just looking at this menu here. We're going to start off on the left side of that menu. So of course we have our scenes tab, which I have open now, and that contains all of our VR scenes. Your scenes are the foundation of your VR project. So They're not really an enhancement, so we're just going to brush over that today, and we'll move right into audio. So, audio is our first enhancement asset that we can add to our VR project. And there's a couple of different ways that you can incorporate audio into your VR experience. So, the first is through audio hotspots, and those are placed as clickable hotspots anywhere in your project. So, a couple of ways you can use audio hotspots are to insert a welcome message or describe a design choice. The second way you can incorporate audio into your project is through ambient audio. Ambient audio will automatically play when your viewer enters a scene. So there's no hotspot associated with this audio. A couple of ways you can use ambient audio would be to add music or background noise to your project to set a certain mood, or just make the experience more immersive. If you're interested, we do actually offer sample audio files for you to download from the project resources page, which you can access just by clicking on this resources tab and then project resources. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that project resources page, you will find some sample audio clips for you to include in your project. Anyways, so regardless of how you will be using your audio, you're going to upload all those files here. So I'm just going to do that now by clicking on this browse button, and then I'll select both my audio files. I have two that I'm going to be incorporating into my project today, and those will upload here. Okay, moving on. Next, we have images. So here you can upload a JPEG or a PNG file and add it as an image hotspot anywhere in your project. You can use image hotspots to show your client a product shot, a material sample, or even a before and after photo. I uploaded an image hotspot to this project during the Getting Started with Yulio webinar. So you can see that image here already, but I'm going to upload another one here today. So that will actually have two image hotspots in our project. So I'm just going to click on the browse button again, and I'm going to select this material sample. Oops, the material sample is too large. I should have tested that beforehand. I did not test that. So we'll just add something else. I'll add in these chairs here. Okay. Next to images, we have videos. So, like images, you can insert video anywhere in your project as a video hotspot. A couple of different ways we see video being used are to incorporate product videos, or you can even introduce the designer and have them share some details about the design. So, anyone with an active Yulio license can add a video to their project from YouTube. So, to add a YouTube video, you'll just copy the URL from YouTube and then select this Add a Video from YouTube button and just paste the link. One thing to keep in mind with adding a YouTube video is that you will not be able to view that video in Yulio from a VR headset. You'll only be able to view the video in the browser mode experience, so that would be from your desktop or your phone. Now, we do offer a premium video add-on at an additional cost. With this option, you can upload a video file directly from your computer, and you'll be able to view the video in browser mode and on a VR headset. The premium video add on also enables you to incorporate video scenes into your VR project. So, those are like kind of scenes that include motion or animation. If this is something you are interested in, feel free to reach out to me later and we can go over that in more detail. But anyways, we're just going to use a YouTube video today. So that has been uploaded here, and we can move on to AR. So AR stands for augmented reality, if you don't know. As you can see, I already have an AR model uploaded here because, like I said, it was generated during the rendering process with Yulio Jump. So for those of you who are not familiar with AR, an example that you might have come across before are shopping apps that allow you to try on eyeglasses before purchasing them. It's essentially placing a digital overlay onto your physical environment. So, in the context of your VR projects, AR allows you to bring certain elements in your project to life for your client. So they can actually see how a piece of furniture or any other element will look and fit in their real physical space. I'll show you an example of how this works a little bit later. So the easiest way to create AR content for your Yulio VR project is with Yulio Jump for Revit, SketchUp, and CET. Now, I'm not going to cover how to create AR content with Yulio Jump in today's session, but if you want to learn more about adding AR to your Yulio projects, I recommend downloading our Yulio Jump user guides, which are available on the CAD plugins page on our website. So to access that page, you can go to resources again and then CAD plugins. And that will take you here. So if you scroll down, this is where you can download all of our plugins. We have one for Revit, SketchUp, and CET. And then we also have user guides for each plugin. In those user guides, you'll find a section specifically for AR tagging, and it will go over step by step how to tag AR assets in your project and then render with Yulio Jump. Um, so that's, of course, the easiest way, in my opinion, to add AR assets to your project. Um, if you don't use Yulio Jump, you can always upload your AR assets manually. Um, you just want to make sure that they meet our compatible file format. So you can click on this link to see that, and then you can just upload an AR model from your computer if you prefer. Moving on, the final enhancement option here is our floor plan. So again, I rendered this project with Yulio Jump, so I had Jump export and upload my floor plan for me, which you can see here. A benefit of exporting a floor plan through Yulio Jump is that Yulio Jump will automatically add location markers to your floor plan that represent each of your scenes. Those location markers can then be used by your clients to help them identify where they are in the space, and they can even use them to navigate to new scenes. That being said, again, if you don't use Yulio Jump, you can always upload a floor plan here manually. And if your space is multi-level, you can actually add multiple floor plans here as well. Okay, so these are all of the assets you can add to your project. You can always come back to this page at any time if you want to add more assets or remove assets. But at this point, the next step would be to open up the Hotspot Editor. And this is where I will actually add the enhancement hotspots to my scenes using the assets I uploaded. You can open the Hotspot Editor just by clicking on this big blue button. So this is what the Hotspot Editor looks like. When you open it, you'll notice that you are standing in your first scene. And if you look to the left of my screen, you'll see all of your hotspot editing options and along the left panel here, along with a few other options as well. So I'm going to kind of go through each of these one by one as we go throughout the hotspot editor and throughout the project. So first is our scenes tab. So if you have a project with more than one scene, this is where you can edit or add your navigation hotspots to all of your scenes. So as a reminder, navigation hotspots are Yulio's form of point-to-point navigation. So your viewer can activate them to navigate to new scenes, and it helps give your viewer a sense of walking around the space. So if you look around, you can see that my navigation hotspots have been added here for me. And it just saves me, this was because I rendered with Yulio Jump, it just saves me from having to go in and do it manually myself. So my navigation hotspots are these solid white circles. Now, if you didn't use Yulio Jump and you're adding your hotspots manually, you can do so by dragging and dropping each scene into the scene that you're currently standing in. So you'll know where to drop your scenes based on this thumbnail image that you see here in the scenes panel. So this is what we call our target view. And this just tells you where that camera or hotspot should be positioned in the scene. So I'm going to delete uh, one of my scenes here just to show you what that looks like. So here's my view 2. And I'm going to use this thumbnail image kind of as my guide to drag and drop the scene where I want it, or where it kind of goes in this scene that I'm currently standing in. So this is a seated view. It's kind of a lower perspective. So I'm going to kind of drop it right above the seat. And then once I drop it, that will open up my hotspot properties. So from here, I can edit the title of the hotspot. I can hide the title. And I can also adjust the depth. So that's this button here. Basically, if you move it closer to near, that will make the hotspot larger. If you move it closer to far, it will make the hotspot smaller. This essentially is how your client can kind of distinguish between near and far when they're viewing in VR. From here, you can also adjust the color of the hotspot. So white and black, we have kind of as standard options, or you can open up this paint tool and choose essentially any color you'd like. Once that's set, you can just press close, and that's how you add in a navigation hotspot. One thing to keep in mind is if you're adding your navigation hotspots manually, you will have to go through each scene in your project and add your navigation hotspots to each scene. So they're not going to be automatically applied to every scene that you're in. So let's just say I added my hotspots here. So I have view 2, 3, and 4. Next, I would move to my next scene. And then I would again add in my hotspots here as well. So as you can see, my view 1 actually isn't included here. Oops. So to do that, I would just drag and drop here and then adjust my title, the depth of the hotspot. So how close is this hotspot to where I'm currently standing? And then I'll just press close. Okay, I'm just going to click on home and return to that first scene. All right, now I'm going to move on from scenes, and we'll move down this list to audio. So here are the audio files that I uploaded earlier. First, I'm going to add in this short welcome message, and I'm going to add that to my first scene over here. So once I drop the hotspot, again, I can edit my audio properties here, just like my navigation hotspots. So today I'm going to leave the title on. I am just going to shorten this title though, just because longer titles sometimes can take away from your scene when you're viewing in VR. So I'll put welcome, and then the depth looks good, so I'll leave it how it is, and then press close. And there's my audio hotspot. Moving on, I have text. Oops, I forgot to delete this from last time. Let's just delete that. So text hotspots are the only hotspot you don't have to upload anything in advance for. So you will create any text hotspots right here in the Hotspot Editor. For text hotspots, they can be used for anything really. Some ways we see them used are to provide product details. Um, you can write a short welcome message or provide any sort of information about the space. So to create my hotspot, I'm going to click on this Create Annotation button. This will open up my hotspot properties. So I'm going to use this text hotspot today to promote Yulio's 30-day free trial. So starting with the title, I'm just going to write try Yulio. And then I will write a short description. So that just says, like what you see, visit our website to sign up for a 30-day free trial. And then here I can actually link the the free trial page. So um, I'm going to start by adding in my link title. So that's get started. And then I will add in the link to the page. So this will add a clickable link to that hotspot. So when my client or viewer opens the hotspot, they will be able to click on that link and head right to our pricing page. If you didn't have a web page per se that you wanted to link to, you can even link to an online PDF as well. Okay, I'm going to adjust the depth a little bit and then just move my hotspot where I want it and then press close. And there's my text hotspot. Okay, moving on. Now we have images. So I'm actually going to move to my second scene to add um, my image hotspot. And I can do that just by clicking on this next scene arrow here that you saw me use before. So if you're wondering why I moved to a new scene, ideally when you're creating and placing your enhancement hotspots, you want to sprinkle those hotspots throughout all of the scenes in your project. This can just help keep your clients engaged as they move from scene to scene. And it also helps to keep you from flooding one single scene with a bunch of hotspots. So looking to the left of my screen, we can see both of the images I uploaded earlier. I was going to show you how I would add a material sample here, but that, as you saw, the image file was too large. So that was my mistake. Um, Instead, I will add in this product shot here. So just like I've been doing, I'm going to click and drag my image into the scene to create the hotspot. So this I will use today to show off some chair alternatives here that you can add. So we can just place that over the chair. And then here's my hotspot properties. I can keep the title of the image or hide it. I might just hide it. Again, here I can actually link to the product page or the company page so like if my client wanted to explore um, all of the chairs that we have available, whatever it may be, I can add that link here if I wanted to. And then I can adjust the depth. I will put this near because it's quite close to me. And then I'll just press close. And there is that image hotspot. Actually, I'm going to show you the other image hotspot that was added to this project in the Getting Started webinar. I just want to give you another example of how you can use images in your project. And that one actually contains an external link as well. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here is, I'm in my third scene now. And here's that image hotspot. I'll just click on this. So this is another configuration of this shelving system here. So I added that image in, and then I also linked to the product page. So my client, if they're viewing this, could click on that link and open up the details of that product. Okay. Now moving on, the next hotspot we can add is video. I'm going to move back to my second scene to add in my video. So I can just click on the hotspot and select that jump to scene arrow, and that will bring me, that's another way you can navigate in the hotspot editor. So I'm going to open up the video tab and then just drag and drop this video on the screen here. This is just a welcome to Yulio video or meet Yulio video. You could add your own company video here. You can add a video from your designer introducing the design or even a specific product video. So I've just placed that on the desktop screen here. And then for my hotspot properties, I'll keep the title on here. I could add an external link to the video. I'm just going to leave that blank today. And then I'll adjust the depth and press close. And there's my video hotspot. All right, below video, the last hotspot I can add here is AR hotspots. Now, like I said earlier, I rendered this project with Yulio Jump and added my AR models to my render. So my AR hotspots were generated and placed in my project automatically. So if you probably already saw them, but if I turn to the left here, here's that AR hotspot of this chair here. That being said, if I ever wanted to adjust the size, color, or placement of my AR hotspots, I can always come into the hotspot editor and make adjustments. So I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just say I wanted to edit the hotspot in this scene. I'll open up the AR hotspot properties. I can turn on the title of this hotspot. So the AR hotspots that are rendered out of Jump, um, the titles are hidden by default, but I can turn them on if I wanted to. I can also come here again and add an external link. So if I wanted to link to the product page of this chair, I can adjust the depth if I feel that it's not quite right or if I just want to customize it. And then I can also customize the color. One thing to note is that any adjustments I make to my AR hotspot in this scene here won't be applied to the AR hotspot in other scenes. So when you render AR models out of Yulio Jump, Jump will add that AR hotspot to every single scene in your project. So if I go to my first scene, you would have noticed earlier that same AR hotspot is on that same chair in this scene as well. So if I did want to edit the hotspot properties for this or in this scene as well, I would have to go to the scene and edit those properties here as well. They're not going to be applied to all of the AR hotspots throughout the project. Okay, that is all for hotspots. Now, moving on, I'm going to open up my project's floor plan. That's below the AR tab here. And from here, I'm just going to show you what you can do in the hotspot editor to enhance your floor plan even more. So what you can do in the hotspot editor is add these red location markers. So those are these red markers here. And these are associated with your scenes. So these location markers are beneficial for a couple of reasons. First is they can help your client easily identify where they are in your space. So depending on which scene your client is in when they're viewing your project, when they open up the floor plan, the location marker that represents the scene they're in will be highlighted this blue color. A second benefit is that they make your floor plan fully navigable, meaning your client can use the location markers to jump to a new scene. And I'll show you how this works a little bit later when we go ahead and view the project. So because I rendered this project with Jump and I selected Add Floor Plan in my render settings, all of my location markers have been accurately placed in the floor plan for me, as you can see here. That being said, if you didn't use Yulio Jump, you would be able to come in to the hotspot editor and add them manually just by dragging and dropping them into the floor plan based on their location. So this works similar to dragging and dropping your scenes into your floor plan to add navigation hotspots. I'll just show you what this looks like. I'll delete this scene here or location marker here. Now, if I scroll down, I'm just going to again use this thumbnail image as a guide to where that location marker is located on the floor plan. You don't have to be perfect with this, just as close as you can get. It's located about here. So I'll drop that, and that's it. Okay, so that's all for the floor plan, but we're going to return. That's all for the floor plan for now. We'll return to this in a minute. I'm just going to move down below this and open up our starting direction tab. So this opens up our starting direction tool, and that allows you to adjust the default starting direction of your scenes. So when you upload a scene to Yulio, that scene will open based on the camera position you had set in your CAD tool. However, if you want to change that view to another part of the scene, you can do so by setting a new default starting view. So in this window here, I'm sorry, in this large window here, you'll simply drag the camera position to where you want your new starting view to be. So let's just say I want it kind of straight down this walkway here. I'll set the camera position and then select apply. And then that new position will update in the thumbnail here. So you can see my new starting direction. Um, an example of the new starting direction is in this thumbnail image here. Now, keep in mind that the updated starting direction will only be in effect for viewers who are navigating with the next or previous scene buttons or the floor plan location markers. So if they're navigating by navigation hotspots, this starting direction won't be in effect. They're going to maintain what we call forward gaze navigation, meaning you enter the new scene facing the direction that you came from. Now, I'll go over this a little more in just a minute. So I've updated the starting direction for this scene. If I wanted to update more, I would move to the next scene. And again, I can adjust the starting direction here. If you want to undo that new scene or new setting or starting position, you can just click on this reset to default and then select apply, and that will return it to its original starting direction. Okay, the last tab we have in the Hotspot Editor is our settings. So here you'll find some different tools to support authoring and navigation. One thing to note here is the settings you apply here will only be applied to this specific project, not any of your other projects in your account. So first we have our navigation controls, and these allow you to customize the navigation experience for your viewers. I'm going to start off with forward gaze navigation, which I briefly touched on a minute ago. So, like I said, forward gaze navigation means that when viewers navigate through your VR project using navigation hotspots, they will enter each scene facing the same direction that they came from. And this just creates a more natural walkthrough experience. Now, forward gaze navigation is turned on by default for all new projects, but it is only relevant to projects that include navigation hotspots and a floor plan. If you notice that you are not maintaining a forward gaze navigation when navigating by hotspots, this likely means that you need to come into the hotspot editor and create a relationship between your floor plan and your scenes. So, to do this, you're going to start off by turning off this show floor plan hotspot direction. Sorry, you're going to turn on show floor plan hotspot direction if it's not turned on already. So that's this button here. You're also going to want to make sure, so forward gaze navigation, I should have mentioned this earlier, is this button here. So maintain direction when navigating by hotspots. That's our forward gaze navigation button. Like I said, it's turned on by default for all new projects. So you shouldn't have to touch anything here unless you want it turned off. So this is on, and then turn on hotspot direction. Now we're going to return to our floor plan. And if your floor plan has not been calibrated for forward gaze navigation, you'll notice that all of these navigation cones will be facing upwards. If this is the case, you'll have to adjust the direction of your cones to match the direction of your camera in these thumbnail images here. So I'm going to show you an example. I'll go through each of these because they're all facing um, uh, up, and I'll show you how we would adjust those. So here's view one, and that is this location marker here. I want to match the direction of this cone to the direction that the camera is facing in this target view, thumbnail image. Again, you don't have to be perfect, but as accurate as possible is just fine. Okay, now press close. This cone is already actually facing in the right direction, so I'll move on from that one. Next, we'll move this one slightly to the right, and this one is looking down this hallway here. Okay, once you've adjusted the direction of all the cones on your floor plan, you're good to go, and forward navigation will function as it should. So I'm just going to return back to that settings tab. So at the top of the settings panel, we have this show mini map feature. This enables a mini map in the top left corner of your screen, only for those viewers viewing the project in browser mode. When you have a floor plan in your project, this can be a helpful tool for your viewers to see exactly what direction they're facing in your VR scene. If you have this feature turned on, one thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that the show floor plan hotspot direction button, so that's this here that we already have turned on, you want to make sure that it is turned on and that your floor plan cones have been calibrated like we just did. This is because you want to make sure that the cones are moving in the right direction as your viewer looks around. So I'll show you this later. When we view the project, I can show you the mini map. Okay, the last tool we have here under authoring tools is our hotspot alignment grid. This just turns on a grid overlay, which can help you accurately place your hotspots throughout your project. This grid, if it's turned on, it won't be visible to your viewer. It's only visible in the Hotspot Editor. Okay, the final enhancement that we haven't yet added to our project is ambient audio. So ambient audio is actually created outside of the Hotspot Editor. So I'm going to click on this back button and return to our project page for now. So now that I'm back on the project edit page, I'm going to add my ambient audio under the scenes tab, which is where we are now. So you can add ambient audio to any or all scenes. As I mentioned earlier, ambient audio will play as soon as your client enters the scene where you've added the audio. So to add audio to a scene, you'll just click on the sound button. And then you can select which audio file you'd like to add as your ambient audio. So I'll add this office ambience. From here, you can choose to have the audio loop once loop once here or loop indefinitely. I'll just loop it once and then press save. So I've added ambient audio to my first scene and it will play as soon as my client or viewer enters that scene. If I want to add ambient audio to any of my other scenes, I'll just repeat those steps for that scene. If I wanted to remove the file or the audio file from a scene, I can just select that sound button again and then deselect the audio and press close. I'm just going to leave it today. Okay, so we'll view this project together, like I said, at the end of the session, and I'll take you through all of those various enhancement hotspots that we added. But for now, I just want to get into a few tools that we have for updating your VR projects over time and moving projects between folders. So again, using this project as our example, the first tool I want to point out is the download scene button. So this button is shaped like a cloud and it's located on each of our scenes here. This function allows you to download any scene file and directly to your computer or other device that you're on, regardless of whether it was rendered with Yulio Jump or another rendering engine. And when you download the file, it will be the original source file, so you don't have to worry about losing quality. This download tool is particularly useful when used together with our replace function. So the replace function is located to the left of the download button. It's these two arrows. Simply put, this button allows you to replace any scene in your project with a new scene. Anyone can use the replace function, but for our users that render their projects with Yulio Jump, the replace and download tools can be used together to make the process of updating your scenes more efficient. If you use Yulio Jump, you know that when you render even just one scene with Jump, it will upload to Yulio as a new project. So with the download and replace tools, anytime you need to update one or more scenes in your project, you can simply download the new scene or scenes from that new project and then use the replace function to add them to the original project. And when you do this, you can also choose to keep all of your hotspots and other scene data from the original scene, which is super convenient. And that's what saves you time from having to add in those hotspots again. Okay. Before moving on, I do want to quickly note that our download and replace functions are now also available for AR models. So if you go to the AR tab, you'll see our download button and replace button here as well. Um, the process for downloading and replacing AR assets is the same as your scenes. So if you rendered an AR asset out of Yulio Jump and you wanted to replace the new asset with the original one, you can just download the new asset and then come into your original project and replace it. Okay, now I want to direct your attention up to this tools menu here. And the next two functions I want to go over are the duplicate and move project functions. So starting with duplicate, which is the button I am hovering over now. This button allows you to duplicate your entire project, including all assets, navigation, and hotspots. When you duplicate a project, the copied project will upload in the exact same folder that you have your original project in. You can use the duplicate function for a variety of reasons, but as it relates to updating your project, this is a helpful tool if you want to experiment with making changes to your project without potentially affecting or altering the original. The move project function is to the right of that button, of the duplicate button. This is a helpful tool for moving projects to different folders in your account to organize your projects in whatever way works best for you. Okay, the final feature I want to go over is our scene options. So, scene options allow you to show your client multiple versions of the same scene with different materials, lighting, or furniture configurations. You can add scene options to your VR project right away or as it develops over time after ongoing communication with your client. The first step in adding scene options to your project is to render your additional scenes. The number of additional scenes to render depends on how many scene options you want to showcase. I'm only going to be showing one scene option today for a single scene. So I've already rendered my additional scene with Yulio Jump. So I'm going to go back to my folder and open up that project to download this scene and show you what that process would look like. So here's that folder that I've rendered my additional scene to. So I'm going to open that up. Here, I'm going to use that download button to download the scene and press save. Now I'm going to return to my original scene or original project, and I'm going to upload that scene option here. So that'll take a minute to process. Okay, so the scene has uploaded and processed here. Now, to add this as a scene option, what I need to do is group it with my first scene. So uh, if I didn't already mention, this is a another variation of my first scene I have in my project. So I'm going to group that with my first scene to create the scene option. So I'll click on these two lines here, drag the scene up to create a group, and then drop it. From here, you can name the group whatever you'd like. I'm going to name it View 1. And then I'm going to click on this arrow to expand the scene option group. So from here, I'll rename the actual scenes themselves. So I'll rename the first one to option 1 and then option 2. You can use whatever naming you'd like, just depending on your preference and your project. Okay, so you're going to repeat these steps if you're adding more than one scene option to the same group, or if you want to add scene options to other scenes in your project. When you're done, you can go ahead and view the project. That's all you have to do there. So to view the project from this page, you can select the View in 360 icon. That's this button here in the Tools menu. This will open up your project in browser mode. I'm not sure if you can hear the ambient audio, but it is playing because I did add it. I'm not sure if the webinar software will pick that up, but I'm going to mute it for now so it's not distracting. So here is our enhanced VR project. Before I get into all of our hotspots and whatnot, I'm going to just point out those scene options. So when you add scene options to your to your VR project, you'll see the scene option group at the bottom of your screen. And those contain our scene option thumbnails. So you can click on these thumbnails to view the different scene options. I only have two, so um, I'm in my first scene option, which is the original one, and then here's option 2. So this can be a really great tool in many scenarios, including helping your client come to faster decision making if they're maybe stuck between multiple design options or configurations. So here's scene or option 2 and option 1. Okay. So now that we're viewing our project, we'll take a look around at some of those enhancement hotspots we added earlier. So here's our audio hotspot. So that's our welcome message that we added. If I click on that, it will start playing. Again, I'm not sure if the webinar software is picking that up, but it is playing. If we look to the right, I can open up my text hotspot here. And here's that external link that if I click on, that will lead us to our pricing page. I'm going to navigate now to our second view here. So here's the image hotspot we uploaded, and I can click on that. It'll kind of appear larger on the screen so you can see the image more clearly. And then looking ahead here, we have the video hotspot. And then here is an AR hotspot. But we're going to look at that in a minute. First, I want to navigate again to view 3. So here is that image hotspot that contains a product or external link. So again, you can open that and view product page or online PDF. And then next I'm going to open up the floor plan to show you what that looks like. So here's our floor plan. As you can see, where I'm standing now is highlighted blue, so I can see where I am in the space. I can also see what direction I'm facing because those field of view indicators are turned on. And then I can also use the floor plan to navigate to a new scene. So from here, I'll click on view 1 to move back to the front of the space. Oh, and I also want to point out the mini map in the top left corner. So as you can see, as I move around, that field of view indicator um, follows my view. So I can um, see exactly what direction I'm facing, where I'm looking in the space. Again, that's why you want to make sure that those field of view indicators are turned on when you use the mini map, and as well make sure that your cones have been calibrated correctly so that they follow that indicator follows in the right direction. Okay, the last thing I want to take a look at here is our AR model or AR hotspot. So when you click on an AR hotspot in browser mode from a computer, your experience will be restricted to what you see here. So in browser mode, I can essentially just use my mouse to click and drag to rotate the object and view it in full 360. To view the object in true AR from this page, what you can do is click on this AR button at the bottom right side of your screen. From here, this QR code will pop up that you can scan by opening the camera app on your smartphone or even a tablet. Once you scan the code and click on the link on your device's screen, the AR object will open up on your device. So from here, you'll see the object as a digital overlay on your physical environment. So this is an incredible tool for clients to see how furniture or any other design element or object will look and fit in their actual space. So you can go ahead and try that out now if you'd like. Just scan the QR code with your phone's camera or tablet, like I said, and you'll see a link pop up, and you'll just click on that to follow through to the model. When you open the model, you'll just want to make sure that you have enough space around you to drop the model. Otherwise, it might not function properly if there are other objects in the way. And then from there, you should be able to position it, scale it, and even walk around it. So you just drag your finger on or fingers on the screen to move the object around, lift it, um, and scale it. I also want to mention that if you were viewing this Yulio project from a VR headset or directly from your phone or tablet, you would be able to open the AR model on your device straight from Yulio without having to scan a QR code. So it's only in the desktop experience that you have to perform that extra step. Okay, that actually concludes today's webinar. So I'll return to my slides now. So thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. I hope that you were able to learn a little bit more about the many tools and features available in your Yulio account. If you have any questions, you can submit them in the question box, and I will stick around for the next couple of minutes to answer those. And as a reminder, if you want to book an additional training session with me on anything we did or didn't cover today, my email is up on the screen, so please feel free to reach out and I'll gladly work with you to set up a time for us to meet. Of course, you can also email me anytime if you have any questions that pop up later. I also want to mention we do have more webinars coming up, so you can see the schedule anytime at try.yulio.com/webinars and register in advance to join me there. You can also share that schedule with your colleagues, and it's free to join. All of our webinars are free to join, whether you have a Yulio license or not. So I hope to see you at future webinars. Thank you again for joining me. I'll stick around to answer any questions that might have come through. But other than that, have a great rest of your day.